I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com in part 2 of the epic dogfight battle. HTC DROID Incredible 4G LTE, Samsung Galaxy Nexus, 2 hot Verizon Android phones. Starts in just a second, but first, some love to Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with phones like these for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game, which we turn around and give to you, kind of like this. Here you go. For use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game. When you go into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working to help you set up the email, the web, the contacts, the setting. They'll help mom get her picture settings all ready to go, her camera settings, her front-facing camera settings, her text messaging settings, all that stuff, so when you walk out the door, your mom walks out the door, she's good to go. It's part 2, Incredible 4G LTE, Galaxy Nexus. Let's take a look and see which one's the best. Part 2 of an epic dogfight between 2 really nice Android phones. One's $149.99, one has recently been reduced to $99.99. Now both of these are available now at Verizon. DROID Incredible 4G LTE, Samsung Galaxy Nexus. Hopefully we'll see Jelly Bean come to the Galaxy Nexus really soon. But let's start this out by taking a look at the browser on both of these devices. And we'll load up PhoneDog.com on both. PhoneDog.com. And get these all set up and ready to go. And then PhoneDog's loading over here. Now obviously I have a little bit of a signal strength issue in my office. My office is like right in the middle of the building, and so as a result nobody works particularly well, ironically with the exception of T-Mobile. So pinch to zoom, relatively responsive over here. Menu up at the top gives me access to everything that I need to view the desktop site and more. Over here, got that same menu button up at the top, but then I've got my on-screen buttons down here at the bottom. Now, the benefit of the on-screen buttons, they do go away when you watch YouTube and do things like that. But over here, pinch to zoom, relatively responsive over here as well. I noticed it's a little bit faster. The Snapdragon S4 CPU is fantastic on the DROID Incredible 4G LTE. And while Project Butter does a great job with this TI OMAP processor on the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, when it's running 4.0.4, which is what it's running right now, it is a little bit, I wouldn't say laggy, but there's a noticeable speed difference, at least so far as I can tell. I do like the implementation of tabs up here, though, where I can easily scroll back and forth between my tabs just by clicking that button, whereas over here, don't necessarily care for the way it does it, where I have to scroll and then wait for the tabs button to appear at the bottom if I want to access my tabs. And I can go, as you see, tabs is right there, and then I can move around from there. I do like the implementation. In this case, it's on stock Android. You'll also see some differences as a result of this one running Sense 4 and this one running stock Android, for example. You'll see recent applications look a little bit different. HTC's customized this like they have many parts of Android 4.0, but in this case, again, it depends on your personal preferences. You just quickly swipe up to remove, whereas here it's stock Android implementation. You swipe away to remove those out of the list. One area where I do give HTC credit and where they do a great job, personal information management. So let's take a look here. We'll load up contacts on both of these devices just so you can see what they look like. And this, again, stock ice cream sandwich, Sense 4. I do love this little feature right here. Take a look at this. We're going to go into the Quick Brown Fox, for example, and you can see Quick Brown Fox's mobile number there. Again, a demo number. But I like this feature, Thread. Now, let's say the Quick Brown Fox and I are buds. We talk on a regular basis, and I just can't remember when we talked last. I can come in here and say, well, you know what? We sent a message at 11:55 this morning. Went well, thanks for asking. That's the last message I got from the Quick Brown Fox. Email, unfortunately, doesn't integrate with Google, or with Gmail rather, thanks to the fact that there's no Gmail API. But if you have the email set up in the actual mail application, you can receive your email stuff here. Call history as well, and then of course I can see updates, and I can see gallery, and then of course my details back here. Menu button down here at the bottom, whereas it's up at the top and kind of stays at the top in most of the HTC stuff. You don't get that feature over here. We'll go to the Quick Brown Fox for exact comparison. What you do get is a picture where, if you know, of course, you can see the implementation and the similarities here between Android 4.0 builds on these respective devices, but I can edit it, I can set a ringtone, send all calls to voicemail if I want to. But you can see outside of just text messaging and calling, that's really all the abilities I have here. I don't have the option to go into Threads, for example, and see this information on file like I do with the DROID Incredible 4G LTE. So I'm a really big fan of that. Forgive me when I pull these away here. I just want to make sure that I didn't dial. I was doing some test calls earlier and wanted to make sure that these calls were going through. So obviously call log's empty here, but you can see some favorites are all contacts with phone numbers, and you can see the dial pad over here as well. I'm going to remove this call history. I was making some test calls to see which one worked the best in my office. So we're going to load this up, and we'll get this started up, and you can see what it looks like, the difference here. Never been a fan of HTC's implementation on this, the way that recent calls are kind of integrated with contacts. I just think it gets kind of confusing and kind of overbearing to an extent when you have both of those in there and you have like 10 or 20 missed calls or recent calls, whatever the case may be, and it kind of just falls right in line with the contacts. Don't really care very much for that, but you do have access to the keypad, and of course the shortcuts are all down here at the bottom, and they have this nice carousel effect as you move back and forth over on the DROID Incredible 4G LTE. Let's take a look at quadrant standard on both of these, and again, the S4 performs really well, so I imagine that just off the top of my head, it's going to be the one that comes in on top, and I do not have quadrant standard. I think I had to uninstall it on this one due to an issue. Quadrant standard is loaded up on both of these devices. We're going to start them up now and get this ready to go. So obviously you can see that it's running at the moment. So we've got two things over here, 1,700 milliamp hour battery here, 1,850 milliamp hour battery. Both do 4G. I don't know why I said battery like really slowly like that. That was a little creepy. But 1,700 milliamp hours, 1,850 milliamp hours. It's Friday and it's been a long day. Come on now. Got me some slack. HTC's really improved the way that they handle their power management. So even though this has a smaller battery, I've actually noticed better battery life out of this than I have the Galaxy Nexus. I'm getting about 12 hours, 11 to 12, maybe 13 of moderate use on the DROID Incredible 4G LTE. Getting about 9 to 10 and a half over here on the Galaxy Nexus. Much, much better on the DROID Incredible 4G LTE. And I'm noticing that when I'm not using the device, just the power management in general on the Incredible 4G LTE is much better. I've noticed that battery percentages drop much slower on the what I like to call the DINK 4G LTE, the DROID Incredible 4G LTE. So Snapdragon S4 processor runs really well on this device. TI OMAP, a little bit outdated, but with Project Butter coming soon on Jelly Bean, or coming soon to this device, I should say, hopefully that'll make it really awesome and kind of bring it back up, because I can tell you from working with the GSM version, Project Butter and Android 4.1 are pretty awesome. So 4,240 over here. We're waiting for this one to load up. Let's see. Another little thing, these are little Android 4.0 things that I just don't get. You've got your menu button down here. Here they put it in the bar with the on-screen buttons. But down here you'll notice there's just a random menu button because these are obviously capacitive buttons. So it's kind of one of those design flaws of Ice Cream Sandwich. Hopefully they'll work that out in future builds. Down here, 1,980. So again, quadrant standard. Take it with a grain of salt. It's not always indicative of day-to-day performance, but what I will tell you is it's much better on the DROID Incredible 4G LTE thanks to a nice zippy processor. And yes, I did just say zippy. So we're going to load this up, and I'm going to bring in my device here, the red Samsung Galaxy S3 for a picture. And unfortunately, this thing does not have the image sense capabilities of the 1X, the 1S, and the Evo 4G LTE. It still has a great camera. The camera is still just as good as the other cameras on the market, or the other HTC cameras, I should say, on the market. But unfortunately, you don't get burst mode and things like that. But you do get this nice autofocus. And you'll see here that I don't get that feature, which is kind of annoying. You don't get the burst mode feature. You do get your video camera here, and then you can still take stills. So you do get that feature if that's something you use on a regular basis, and perhaps you're coming from the 1S, or you've used the 1S, you've used the 1X, something like that. So that is a nice benefit. So over here you can take a look, 8 megapixel camera. Let's get out of the video here and take a look at some of the stills. Decent picture quality all around. Really impressed with the 8 megapixel camera. It does a good job. You can see it's captured some of the kind of glitter in the paint there along with the red. Over here, 5 megapixel camera, and while the megapixel count may be a little bit lower, the camera is definitely nothing to scoff at, and it gets even better. I know I keep saying this, but it gets even better with the Jelly Bean update. In case you can't tell, Android 4.1 does bring quite a bit to this device. Let me turn the flash off. Off. And let's go back down here and get this. So 5 megapixels doesn't always translate into worse picture quality by any means. It's actually a pretty decent camera. That said, the slight edge goes to the HTC DROID Incredible 4G LTE. It's just ever so slightly a better camera. So, like anything else, both of these, forgive me, I need a glass of water apparently. Both of these are fantastic devices. Really where the Galaxy Nexus wins, a couple of things. One, this is going to be the next device. I guarantee this will get Android, well I don't guarantee, but I'm pretty sure that this one's going to get Android 4.1 before the DROID Incredible 4G LTE. You never know, HTC has a good track record of rolling out updates to their devices. That said, it's already rolling out to the GSM version of the Galaxy Nexus. My hope is Sprint and Verizon versions will follow suit. So if you want Android 4.1 and you want it for a really nice price, $100 is this is a good device for $100. That's a nice price point. You can't beat it. That said, the rumor is the One X is dropping at $100 this weekend, so again, that kind of reunites the war, if you will, and the $100 price point. Over here, $150, but you do get an up-to-date Snapdragon S4 processor, a nice display, even if it is a little bit smaller. You get an 8-megapixel camera, and then you get Sense 4. The winner of the dogfight is the HTC DROID Incredible 4G LTE, just for those reasons. The specs are up to date. It's a little bit more expensive, but it packs some nice features like a great camera, a nice processor, and a really thin body. That said, if you got $100, you really can't go wrong with this. At $100, this is a good deal. At $200, considering the Galaxy S3, the One X, at least right now, and some other competitor devices are at that price point, it wasn't so much of a good deal. That said, if you can get it for $100 and it's what you want, and you want Jelly Bean, go with it. But the winner of the dogfight is the DROID Incredible 4G LTE. Much more coverage to come on PhoneDog.com with both of these devices. Keep it locked on the site as we fight between, I'm sorry, that was mean. Fight between these two devices and more on the site. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/PhoneDog. We're getting ready to start up a brand new giveaway, so stay tuned for that. And be sure to follow me on Twitter, PhoneDog_Aaron, and on Facebook at facebook.com/PhoneDogAB. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and stay tuned for more on these devices and more on PhoneDog.com. We'll see you next time.